Um, that's up to you.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another edition of PEP Talks in the Morning. My name is Hadassah Charles McLeod. We are back. I know we haven't been around for a long time. And share the live as you come in. While the anthem for this week is going to be playing, we're going to be focusing a lot on women and family. All right, good morning, guys. Today is Wednesday, the 11th of May, 2022. And as I would have said before, I am your host this morning. My name is Hadassah Charles McLeod. And you would see that I actually have a guest this morning. Her name is Precious Cruikshank. You guys probably know this name. Philip calls it a lot. She's the manager at Grab and Go and recently appointed as the chair of the Women's Arm, and that is the capacity in which she is joining me today. Good morning, Precious.
Good morning, Hadassah. Good morning to the viewing public. Thank you so much for having me this morning. It is indeed a pleasure to be on.
It is great to have you with your big, lovely smile. This has been in the making for a long time, and I'm really happy that you could join us
Yes,
today. This week, I particularly really wanted to focus on family life, on children, on childhood, on women, and things like that. And I just thought it was really apt. I know there is a lot happening in Trinidad and Tobago, and it could feel really heavy. Um,
absolutely.
I mean, we had the sad news of the 2-year-old Kimani
Yes.
disappearing, and then we finding his body.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of murder, and there's a lot of things happening. But I really wanted to talk to you about really women today and how important women are in our society, in
Yeah,
shaping our homes, in shaping our communities, in shaping organizations,
yeah.
because women are very, very important.
They are. They are. Mhm. So
So
firstly,
on
mhm.
Saturday, go ahead.
Firstly, Hadassah, it is with great honor that I have been given this opportunity to head the Women's Arm, to be the chairman of the Women's Arm for the Progressive Empowerment Party. And I thank our political leader, Mr. Philip Edward Alexander, for affording me this opportunity to take on this task on leading our women within our party. And it is a great one because women play a very vital part in shaping the homes and in extension our society as a country. So it is it is great. It is a great responsibility that I look forward to.
Indeed,
Mhm.
indeed. And I think that, um, I mean, I might be a little biased, but I think he has made a really good, solid choice in you. On Saturday,
Mhm.
I was very happy and privileged to attend the launch of the Women's Arm. And
Yeah,
though we were few in number, I felt so empowered, encouraged, enlightened. And I feel like that is what women need to be to each other.
yeah,
So let's talk a little bit about the launch because at the launch you would have spoken about the objective of the
yeah.
Women's Arm. Could you go into that a little bit?
Firstly, the Women's Arm of the Progressive Empowerment Party would be also known as the National Organization of Women. So it's an auxiliary organization to the Progressive Empowerment Party. And of course, one of our main objectives is to bring forefront of women's issues within our society, and also issues that has been put to the back burner of our our society, where things supposed to be addressed, women concerns supposed to be addressed. We would like to bring forward that continuously within our society and to our government.
Indeed, excellent. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can think about. Like for me, I think about single mothers. I think about what it's like raising children in
Yeah,
the current climate that we have, the
yeah.
social climate that we're experiencing in Trinidad. I
Mhm.
think about the cost of food and the cost of living. Is there
Absolutely.
any particular issue that you would really like to focus on that affects women?
Well, mostly, well, the first issue is that the protection of our women in society, and that is ongoing. Um, we are a part of the Candlelight Movement, as we know. It's an organization under the umbrella of the Progressive Empowerment Party, and one of the things is protecting our women within society, allowing laws to be implemented and policies to be implemented to protect us, because right now, as we can see, just yesterday, a woman, a mother, was stabbed to death by her own husband and her child as well.
Yes,
And
yes.
that is gruesome. I mean, how could we just sit down and just say, okay, that's another death, that's another victim, and not say anything, not do anything, not knowing that that is traumatic for other women to see that that could happen, that is allowed to happen by a public servant. It is alleged a public servant that did this,
Hmm.
a soldier. And I mean, it's ridiculous to know that this should have been avoided. I mean, something would have been adding up to this end. And if reports were being made and nothing was done, or, she would have been reaching out to, let's say, her MP, or someone for assistance, and nothing was done. And this has been the end of another woman's life that has been tragically taken away. It's unacceptable.
It's very
Unacceptable in
sad.
our
Taken
society.
away, especially in a country where you feel like as a woman you are not protected. I'm really
Yeah.
glad you spoke about the candlelight movement because before we went live, we were talking about how we met, and that is how I met you and your beautiful mom. It was at the candlelight movement, those vigils that were held for Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
And while that was a really sad time, it was also a very unifying time, and it shed a lot of light on the fact that women don't feel safe in this country, and that the issue of women's safety is like an epidemic. Every woman
Yeah.
has a story or of almost being kidnapped or
Yeah.
of somebody abusing them in some way, and they're not feeling protected that
Okay, of
the way
course.
that they should be. So I think that is actually a really, really powerful, powerful platform.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, though, we were able to drop off the
Yeah.
128,500 um, signatures to the parliament,
Mm-hmm.
and to date we have not received,
A
not
response.
even, you know, a
Exactly.
word. How do you feel about that?
It's a feeling that you kind of feel neglected, to the point where isn't what I signed. I placed my signature on a petition because I want to see these laws implemented for my protection, for my sister's protection, for my aunt's protection, for my cousin's protection, for other women within society's protection. And nothing is being done. Nothing has, you didn't hear anything about it. You didn't get a response to those petitions just yet. And it's like, then I don't matter, that my life don't matter. Then I, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, firstly, and of course, as a woman in Trinidad and Tobago, what I want to be implemented for my safety does not matter. And it seriously puts a pin literally in your heart and in your stomach, like, okay, so I voted for a government. Well, sorry, I did not vote for that government, but the government that is sitting in, in parliament, they are governing our country. And I am stating I would like these things to be implemented for the protection of myself and for all other women. And nothing is being done, absolutely nothing. And then when we come to the anniversary of Andrea Barrett's death, then we would hear a response from our past Attorney General stating that it's still in the making of implementing that law for women to have pepper spray. Like, I think if that law was implemented, I think a lot of women would have been saved. We may never know because it's still in the back burner of policymakers' minds. And that is what we do not want. We want it to be at the forefront, just as important as any other policy to be implemented within Trinidad and Tobago.
Indeed, indeed.
Mhm.
It really is kind of heart shattering
Mhm.
because you're thinking that these people have your best interests at
Yeah,
heart,
yeah.
and that you really thought that that many signatures, physical signatures,
Come on.
would have brought them to the core and would have pushed them
Yeah,
to want to do something. And it's
yeah.
just more and more evidence that they really, really don't care. And it's
Mhm.
not just women's issues, it's child protective services is those issues. It is,
Yeah,
if when you think back to the divers, when you think back to things like property tax and everything,
yes,
there is this general feeling that the current administration does not care, and
yeah.
they don't listen
That is,
to the population.
that is it.
um I remember though that it seemed as though I don't know if they call it the women's league for the PNM,
Right.
they were not supportive at all of the candlelight movement.
Mm.
And I really kind of wanted to talk about what the women's arms of current political parties are,
Mhm.
and why it is the women's arm for the Progressive Empowerment Party is different.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know much about the other women's arm in terms of the other parties, but I know for the Progressive Empowerment Party, and we would be known as the National Organization for Women. It's not We are not just focusing only on women within our party who are members, but it's national. It has to do with country first, and any issue that is affecting women, it's affecting all women, not just women within a particular political party. It affects each and every woman, every girl within Trinidad and Tobago. And when those laws that we wanted to be implemented for women was given in the petitions, was stated on top of the petitions, is it was not for just women within the Progressive Empowerment Party. I think, government and, well, the women's arm of the PNM, if they were against it that much, is because they didn't see the bigger within that action that we did as the candlelight movement. Is to implement laws that would safeguard a woman, that would safeguard a family member that they may have in the future. We don't know what the future holds, but instead of being reactive, we want to be proactive to the point where we are going to implement these things that would protect women going
Yeah,
forward. We don't want to have another case where we have to be searching and looking for a woman who has been kidnapped, an innocent life, kidnapped and then killed We don't want that. So, not being in support of something that affects every woman within our society was poor, and it was
Yeah.
very disappointing. But I think people need to put um, people first and politics. And I think they get what is the meaning of politics wrong. Basically, it's involved, it's associated with the governance of a country. It involves the activities that would improve a citizen's standard of living and well-being. And if we want to be involved in politics, we have to understand that it's not about your own agenda, but it's about putting people first. People put you there for a reason. They voted you in. You walked
Yeah.
around, you asked them for your vote, and they expect you to do the job and to do it right and to do it in their best interest. And
Yeah.
those petitions is indeed is in the best interest of women
Of
within
all
Trinidad
women.
and Tobago.
Well said, Precious. Well said. I mean, I know that every organization within the Progressive Empowerment Party, basically our mandate is to raise the torch of policies that we want to see implemented in our society. And what I find that you get from more the PNM, not so much the UNC. The UNC, that's another story. But what you get is a lot of hate, a lot of pull
Yeah.
down.
Mm-hmm.
So even recently, former Finance Minister Karen Nunez Chichera would have come out and talked about the fact that she is privy to names of businessmen who are involved in like the drug trade and things like that. And
Right.
you would have thought that because she was very much once associated with the PNM, probably still is to some extent,
Yeah.
that there would have been a call for transparency, there would have been a call for justice and so what you actually had is that the women in the party pulling her down, tearing
Yeah.
her down. And
Yeah.
what you find happening is that they only speak up when it comes to defending Stuart Young's nonsense or Faris Alwari's nonsense
Mm-hmm.
or Terence. And I just think it is so counterproductive. It
Yeah.
does not help anybody at all.
Oh,
And I want to
exactly.
believe that you would want to like go in a totally different direction.
Of
And
course, of course.
you would not want that the women's arm of the Progressive Empowerment Party now, comes to be something that symbolizes hate
Yeah.
or disunity and things like that. So I really believe that what is in your heart and what you're setting out to do is very,
Mm-hmm.
very important.
Yeah.
Tell me something. Why do you think women in politics is important?
Well, as you stated, politics is associated with the governance of a country, and also politics is has to do with the involvement of the activities of someone's well-being. And of course, woman in politics would be a citizen in politics, a citizen who is interested in implementing policies and implementing laws and being a part of the decision making of our country in terms specifically for women. Women should never remove themselves from the decision making of a country, because when policies are being put in place and laws, it affects them, it affects their life, it affects their standard of living, it affects everything around them. So we should never want to exclude ourselves from politics. We should never want to say, okay, well, that is not for me, leave that up to the man, leave. No, no, no. We are going to be involved in the decision making of our society, because I have to live here, my children have to live here, I have to thrive in this society. And in order for me to fulfill my maximum potential, when laws are being implemented, it should not be laws that would cause me not to reach my full potential would limitate me from
Yeah.
doing what I have to do as a citizen and as a woman in society. So, women in politics, we need more women in politics. I think if we had more um hmm, I don't want to say word, but sensible women in politics. We have a few, not all, not many. But if we had, I think the laws and presently in present government, I think those laws that the candlelight movement was still petitioning for would have already been implemented. I think if we had a woman attorney general, possibly they would have seen the importance of implementing the urgency of implementing those laws for the protection of our women.
Indeed, indeed. Unfortunately, though, very more often than not, it seems as though the party that that particular woman in politics represents, that always seems to take precedence,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of women who are sitting in the cabinet representing the UNC, representing the PNM. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said before, you would think that they would want to get in front of this issue,
Mm-hmm.
because they are women too, because
Yeah.
they are mothers too, and they have children too. But it seems as though upholding whatever side that their party comes down on is more important than
Yeah.
actual policy that sees women being protected and sees that systems are put in place for
Yeah.
quick response
Exactly.
and things like that, which makes it really, really unfortunate. I mean, I know a lot of people would have their reservations and misgivings and feelings of disappointment in our current president. And that was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be such a historic thing because, she was the first woman appointed to, that position. And a lot of people felt so happy. And, it
Yeah.
was supposed to
Yeah.
show us as a inclusive and progressive society.
Yes.
And, that decision really has not bode well, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
for women, because she's basically a figure and a public figure, and she doesn't have the authority or the power to do
She's
to
very
do
silent. That's the thing. She's
to
very
do
silent. And I
anything,
think
and
she has
she's
a lot
towing
of
the
power.
line. Yeah,
She has power, but as if she's using the power. That's it. If
indeed.
if she's willing to use it and do right by the office that she sits in and use the power that she has to implement certain things within our society, be more vocal about the injustice that, is being seen across the board. Be more vocal. I mean, if you're the president, we expect certain things, we expect to hear you more often. And if we're not hearing you and sometimes not seeing you at all, it's very disappointing.
Indeed, indeed. There was a long period of silence between Andrea's murder and her finally making a statement. When she
Yeah.
finally did speak, she said, something along the lines of our salvation, we being the source of our own salvation, our own rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she was, and that was one thing I always say that I agree with her with. She's very, very correct. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say this morning that I'm really happy to be associated with the women's arm of the
Yeah.
Progressive Empowerment Party, um, the National Organization of Women, which in my head I'm already hearing PEP now. And
Yes.
to make sure that we always find ourselves on the right side of history
Yeah.
and fighting for the causes that would really bring meaningful and tangible change to the persons who are affected by the decisions of our leaders.
Of
So,
course.
Precious, I really want to tell you thank you for joining us this morning. Do you have
Thank you
any
for having
closing
me.
remarks?
My closing remarks will definitely be for women out there. If you'd like to join the Progressive Empowerment Party's Women's Arm, you can do so. You can go to our website, it's peptt.com. And when you're signing up to register to become a member, you just click on the box that says Join Women's Arm, come on board, be a part of the Women's Arm of Change. Of course, there's a lot of work to do because we had our first general meeting last Saturday. It's not going to be an easy road, but it would be a road that you would see the hard work paying off, because we are not just doing this because we just want to be a part of an organization, or we want to do something else and just stay home. We want to be a part of the focus of implementing change for our women within our society, being vocal to the injustice that women are facing within our society and doing something about it. We don't have to be empowered to do. We can do now, and we can do much more when the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago put us in government as the Progressive Empowerment Party, headed by our visionary, Mr. Philip Edwin Alexander. That's right.
Indeed,
Thank you so
indeed.
much,
Well
Hadassah, for
said.
having me.
Of course, anytime I look forward to having you on. Again, do enjoy the rest of your day,
You too,
and
Hazel.
we will be in touch.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
That was Precious Cruikshank, newly appointed chair of the women's arm of the Progressive Empowerment Party. And I was really nice talking to her and, getting a feel for what is in her heart and what she would like to see that organization become. A lot of people have been saying, with great outrage in response to the death of the 2-year-old little Kamani, oh, it takes a village. Um, and I was really thinking about how we could be really hypocritical sometimes, because when it's a baby, everybody gets on their high horse and they will say it takes a village. But put 10 or 12 years on that same child, and he's 14, and he ends up in a school fight, and it ends up on social media. And the same public turns around and calls the child pest, cockroach, look at them, that is rowdy, go children and whatnot. And then you put 10 more years on him, and then his face plastered on the front page for some indiscretion or for some illicit activity. And the attitude is, well, they look for that and whatnot. And I'm like, where is that whole idea of it takes a village from cradle to the grave, and that sense of community and that sense of taking care of each other at every stage, at every point in life, how we look out for our elderly, how we look out for the disabled, how we look out for the homeless and the helpless among us, how we look out for children and students, and of course how we look out for women and babies. It's not just it takes a village when the child is 2 years old. And Philip really wanted to encourage people today to go out today and help somebody, right? During the pandemic, how many of us, knowing that our neighbors did not have internet, was willing to share our Wi-Fi with them so their kids could um, do online school? How many of us had an extra device that we could have loaned somebody or given somebody, and we did not do that? How many of us helped babysit people who had to go out and look for jobs because they lost their job? And how many of us cooked meals and helped? It's really easy to stay and be a keyboard warrior and say, it takes a village, and the neighbor should have do this, and the mother should have do this, and we are nowhere to be found. As a matter of fact, when you have an opportunity to actually help somebody, you choose not to. So let's try to get things right and going well in our own hearts, and make sure that that spreads to everyone that we know and everyone we love, and to start to create the society that we want to. I have another guest this morning, and I'm going to bring her in now. Good morning, Anasha. How are
Hi,
you?
morning. Fine, thanks.
Thank you for your patience. So, Trinidad and Tobago, my next guest, her name is Anasha Karim Sicharan. And, we really like to talk about the issues that affect us in Trinidad and Tobago. But she is a perfect example of how decision making at the top affects the everyday man. So, we're going to be talking to her today. Hi, Anasha. How you doing?
Fine, I'm fine, thanks, and yourself.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning.
Not a
It's a
problem.
privilege
I
to have
think,
you on. Of
yeah, I
course,
think it's important.
it is. Do you think you want to give us a little background as to why you're here this morning?
Okay, so I am here this morning because my child tested positive for COVID just in the middle of the second week of school reopening. And for the 2 years, he was protected. He never got it. And we were very careful in what we were doing with him, where we were taking him, which was almost nowhere. And to know that there was mismanagement happening, and because of that he got it, it was very disheartening.
Indeed. So we're not going to be talking about, we're not going to name the principal. We're not going to name the school. We're just going to be talking about just you as somebody having to deal with the consequences of leadership or lack thereof. So I want to ask you first and foremost, how did you feel when it was announced that kids were going back to school in April?
I mean, I was a bit nervous, and really, to be honest with you, scared on the management aspect of it. Now, I fully understand that schools need to be reopened, life must go on and whatnot, but the way that they wanted to do it, that was very concerning to me. And despite having protocols to wash hands, to sanitize and do temperature checks at the school, all the children are seated three to desks. So, what was the point of it?
I know, I know. It kind of feels like, okay, we're taking all these precautions here, but the actual implementation of it is not practical.
No.
All right, all right. Can you tell me in your son's school what exactly were the safety protocols that were observed?
Sure. So when you arrive at the school, you wash your hands, and then there's a line with social distancing in the line to do temperature checks. And then outside of the classrooms, there are sanitizing dispensers. And I think at the end of school, they sanitize before the next day.
Okay,
So
okay. I
some
mean,
measures were taken, were put in place and whatnot as best as they could at the time, given, the whole pandemic issue and following all these different guidelines. However, you follow it up to a point and then you are put in a cluster, basically.
all right. And do you think that there was anything else that could have been done in terms of the rollout with kids going back to school that would have, uh, resulted in less children contracting COVID?
I mean, you have all these experts, and you pay for all these advice of the persons and whatnot. And what I think should have happened was that there should have been a rotation basis. And if you were worried about, well, if a kids come out on a Tuesday, the miss is gonna have to teach the same thing on a Wednesday. No, you have technology. You could have put a camera in the classroom. So while they're social distancing on the Tuesday, and let's just say, for instance, you're teaching a topic on independence or something, the other half of the class is allowed to follow through at home. So on the Wednesday now, when another subject is being taught, the class that was present on the Tuesday is now at home on the Wednesday. So then you could have had some social distancing in place. They had 2 years to put in place proper ventilations in the school because some of the schools are air conditioned. So you have, you would have had all these things to consider, the time in which to do the infrastructure and whatnot, because of course, when this was hit with the world, you would have had experts letting you all know, okay, this is not going to be done in 6 months or even a year. This is here to stay and we're going to have to live with it. So it's better that we start making provisions now to live with it rather than waiting for it to end and put in a cease to the economy and growth.
Well said. Do you think that the education ministry um, did all that they could possibly do in getting kids back to school safely?
I think it was poorly handled. And I think what they did was not right because they did not give permission to the principals. And I must commend those who, I would say put their jobs on the line for the safety of the children and themselves, as well as the teachers. But you have the principals that followed and adhered to strict protocol. And I think it was just mishandled entirely, and you are seeing the results right now.
Indeed, indeed. With that said, do you think that the government should have waited till September to reopen school?
I don't have a definite no and yes to that. What I can say is that everywhere is returning to some form of normalcy. But what is the new normal now? That's what you have to ask yourself. What is the new normal? And we have to adapt. We have to live with the virus. And what I think is that they had sufficient time to plan and they didn't. They failed to execute a proper plan to really manage this thing properly, and especially the students. And yes, they want to say, well, students, bounce back really quickly, but then you have to take into consideration there are persons at home that are at risk, whether it be parents or the siblings, and that was not an aspect that I think was really viewed upon heavily as it should have been.
Indeed, well said. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, this is not something that we've been dealing with just a couple of days. COVID has been with us for a while. And in a lot of different sectors, private sectors, different organizations, you're seeing how they have had to pivot to treat with life where COVID is a reality. So, for example, some people are now working remotely from home. There's also rotation and things like that. And I personally don't feel like the Ministry of Education took everything into consideration. Um, they did not roll out kids going back to school as though, okay, this is something that we've been dealing with for a while, and this is the best way to mitigate risk, and this is the best way to do it with minimal infections and things like that. So what you say is very, very, very,
And
very,
I
very
agree
true.
with you because you have the persons that are saying, listen, the world is moving on, we will be kept behind, we need to. But what those persons also need to understand is that we are a third world country. The rest of the world that they are comparing us to, it's a first world country. And can we really and do we really have the resources to manage an upsurge or crisis where the kids spread it to persons at home, may it be elderly persons, parents, siblings, and them needing some form of hospital care. Could we really afford that? And could we really tell ourselves that it would be managed properly? Because in recent times, you would have seen the deaths. How much it was, you would have seen hospitals being filled, to capacity and whatnot. So, what are we really doing? Are we really playing with the children's future? And it is really our future because the children are the future. So, are we really in a position to gamble with that?
Indeed, indeed. I mean, the way things are done in our country, you wonder if a lot of it is deliberate. We hear in Terrence Yeltsin still insisting on rolling out, the pediatric COVID vaccines for children. And I guess with, you know, parents being infected and children being infected since going back out to school, it kind of makes the case, well, yeah, you should get your kids vaccinated. This is a very touchy subject, and I know it's also very personal, but can you tell me a little bit about how you feel about that?
Um, To me, I don't know, and knowledge is power. However, I am not sure in terms of vaccinating my children. I was vaccinated while I was pregnant. My baby is now 7 months old, and I had a lot of complications after taking the vaccines. And I'm talking about I got the first dose and then the second dose. Um, so it is not something that I would feel comfortable, putting into my child just yet. So immediately, the definite answer from me right now would be no, nothing yet, nothing immediate. Because I am not sure exactly what will be the reaction, what will be the long term side effects. And I myself didn't really want to, I was hesitant to take it at the time simply because of my own health complications. However, it was, I was in a rock and a hard place and I decided to take it.
Yeah, which is what a lot of people say. Conversations that I've had with friends and family, etc. I haven't really encountered anybody who really wanted to take it, wholeheartedly because they were convinced of the science, etc. It was really, well, I have to take it because I'm the sole breadwinner in my family, or I have to do it for my job. Um, and I mean, that should never. That's not a good feeling. Go ahead.
Mm. And from what I understood, at the time the pregnancy was complicated, and my gynecologist is excellent, and she said, listen, we need to get to the stage, otherwise you're gonna have to go. In the public system. And in the public system, the same doctors that are seeing about COVID patients are also seeing about you. I already have decreased lung function and whatnot from an illness I had before. So, being in a rock and a hard place, you're thinking, okay, this virus attacks the lungs. I should take it to manage the symptoms if I do have to go that route because it was a day by day management with that pregnancy.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
it was a tough choice, and I did. At the point in time, the side effects and whatnot that I got immediately after the second dose, I landed up in Mount Hope Women's.
hmm. Yeah. And you see, these are the conversations that we are not having. A lot of people are making comments on social media. A lot of it just having to do with defending the party that they support, not really thinking through all of the consequences and the ramifications of things like that. But we digress. I wanted to get back to, kids and schools and stuff like that. As a
Right, and I
parent,
think you're right, and I think the a lot of persons are segregating, and they are looking for who towards who they support. But when you really put those things to rest, and you think about what is actually happening. There comes a time when you need to put politics aside, put things down, and really see what is the issue and how we can help and solve it. And I think that has a big part to play in it.
Of course, well said, Anasha. Say it for those at the back. As a parent, though, have you lost confidence in the school's ability to protect our children?
I can't entirely put blame on the school because they are being governed by a higher body, of course. But what I can say is that some of the schools, the majority, it is almost as they are afraid to stand up. They are afraid to, put their foot down, as so to speak, in dealing and handling with this. And I think it's really unfair, and it's something they should think about, because you have the teachers that have to come out to teach, and then you have, there are so many things that you could do. So there are lots of schools that actually have large playing fields and whatnot. How hard is it if it is, you all don't have the infrastructure to complete some sort of ventilation process? So why is it that, tents can be erected, there can be social distancing, in the schools there, and have an outdoor class setting. It isn't, there are so many boards on these stands and whatnot. Be innovative and try to see what you could do with what you have. And I think a lot of it is that, okay, well, we're in the school building, there's air condition, there's no way we can ventilate this place, but you all are really not looking at other options. And this is something that you need to really look at and see on an individual case by case basis on how this can be properly managed. Because for one school, they may have the infrastructure to do ventilation in the
Yes.
classrooms, but then in another school, probably in a densely populated area, that there are a lot of buildings and it's fully air conditioned, you may need to look at an alternative solution for them. So I think it's something that each principal of the school needs to take into consideration, and to form a committee and a plan and involve the parents, because there are parents that are willing to help and to do
Yes.
different things. But they are, as I said, all governed by a higher body, and there are some that is really not taking this seriously and not properly managing it for all involved.
Indeed, well said. What we saw was we actually had a tutor, that body, actually having to fight with the education minister, even to just get her to come to the table to have a conversation about what is the best way forward. And what we've had is a lot of resistance from our government, just kind of wanting to get things back to the way that it used to be. But that is actually not applicable and practical right now. And yeah, that is really very disheartening, because you're thinking that the children, the parents, the teachers, those stakeholders should be the most important um, determining factors. Their safety and things like that should be most important in terms of getting kids out to school and getting back safely. And how can we do it? Every school is different. They have bigger schools, they have smaller schools, some schools are air conditioned, like you rightly pointed out. And it was not supposed to be a one size fit all. It really was supposed to be how every school could get our kids back to the classroom in a way that no longer affected them with their learning, and they were no longer behind in the curriculum, but also kept them safe.
Yes, and you are right. And the thing about it is, everything from the beginning to the end, it was, poorly dealt with. Up to now, we haven't gotten a call from any news and whatnot. So, I mean, how there are children with it. doing the antigen test, and it is not being recorded because I called our county to inform them and to ask, okay, is there an email I can send this result to? And I was told that I wasted my money in doing an antigen test because it will not be taken into consideration. I need to take the child to do a PCR test. Now, bear in mind, this child was flat out on the bed. He was too weak to even lift anything, to
Yeah.
even get up to walk. So I already, it was a task, as most parents would know who went through this, just to get them to just swab the touch of the nose here. It was utter chaos. And I imagine to have to take them and put them through that. So I mean, what is it? Are we really doing, and why is it like this? You all had 2 years, 2 years to plan this thing and to, on an individual case by case basis. And then now parents were sending their kids to school under false pretense, thinking that everything was okay. And when we did that, it's only after then we saw the repercussions and what exactly happened.
Yeah. I mean, our co-host Lemma McLeod, she's not only showed this morning because she's not well, and like many parents, hoping and trusting that everything was put in place for their kids, sent her kids to school, and her kids brought back COVID for her. So, um, and this was a real fear and worry that a lot of parents have, and something that they have to deal with now. I mean, people will say, well, you're not the government and you don't know, and they're doing their best and whatnot. And I am so tired of what passes for the best um, in this country, when repeatedly what happens is that it's the citizens that bear the consequences of it. It's
I
the
think I
citizens
think what
that
citizens, what they fail to realize is that we employ the government and we have a say. And for the most part of it, a lot of persons just don't like to speak out for fear of victimization for themselves or for the children. And I think what we need to remember is that we have our rights, and the children have their rights and whatnot, rights to, access education, to feel safe, all these different things. And because the system has failed so many times, you have persons just looking to look the other way and deal with it within their household in the best way that they could, without really standing up and speaking out on these issues. And I think that is a large part of the problem as well that we have, because justice just fails to prevail.
indeed. And I really thank you for coming forward and being willing to share your story and share your experience. I mean, in the hope that other parents will come forward and stand up as well, but also for people to take a closer look at the real consequences of how you vote and the decisions that those people make on our behalf. So I think we're coming to the end of our program. Do you have any closing remarks before you leave?
I just think that, whoever may be viewing, I urge you to stand up and to speak out, because it's the only way things are gonna change. You may think, well, listen, if I stay quiet, or if I speak out, my child is gonna be victimized, and these sorts of things. But I urge you, there are steps and measures to take for such instances, and it is your choice as a citizen to exercise your civic right and to really take whatever it is. If it's, if you're afraid of that, if it's happening or already happening, you have the right to an attorney, you have the right to take it to the full extent of the law. And I really think that if we don't speak up, nothing is going to change. And you really need to, I mean, it's our children, they cannot be replaced. And I think we owe it to them because they don't have a voice for themselves. We owe it to them to stand up and be their guardian.
Indeed. Well said. It really resonated with me what you talked about people being afraid of victimization, because it is a real thing. And that's probably a conversation for another time. But there is something beautiful about taking that first step to come forward to say something, because then all of a sudden you realize that you are not alone. And this issue that is affecting you is affecting so many others. And sometimes people are just looking for one person to step out or to speak up, to find the courage and the confidence to say, yes, this is also affecting me. I don't agree with this, things like that. So I really applaud you this morning. Thank you for joining us on Pep Talks in the morning. And maybe we can have you on at another time. I feel like what you had to say was so valid and so valuable. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Anasha Karim Sitran. She's just a concerned parent, sharing her experience with her kid going back to school and unfortunately contracting the COVID-19 virus. Um, you know, there so many things that are pressing right now in our society, and sometimes it feels very, very overwhelming. And I just want to encourage you this morning that whatever issue is affecting you, whatever issue is affecting you, and you have the ability to shed light on it or to highlight it, whether it's by doing a video or by contacting us on the show, by contacting your MP or whatnot, um, do it. It is in your best interest. It's in the best interest of other citizens that you stand up, because at the end of the day, one citizen cannot take on all the issues. I mean, Philip seems to be doing a really good job at that. But I want to encourage you not to feel overwhelmed by the barrage of issues that is pressing down on us. But if there's one issue that is affecting you that you can stand up and talk about, do it. Lend your voice to others, because it can make a difference. It will make a difference. And you might be talking about your kids going back to school and not feeling like if the environment is safe, and somebody else might be talking about taxi fares going up, and somebody else will be talking about the price of food and whatnot. But we all have to be part of the change that we want to see. I really want to thank you guys for bearing with us, for always showing us support. Everybody on the live this morning. Philip was on earlier. Good morning, Philip. I want to say special good morning to our special guest, Precious, and of course our other guest, Anasha, for these women being willing to step out and talk about the issues that are affecting us. Please join us again on Friday, where we will have another guest talking about women's issues and things like that. Have a great day, and remember, Philip will fix it.